I handle the artistic, all the artistic matters for our non-classical artists. So the Houston Symphony has a lot of different series that we have. We have a classical series and a pop series and a lot of just standalone specials throughout the year. And we have a whole education series, and those are on the artistic side that kind of all can't really be handled by one person. So our senior director, Orly, who I believe you dealt with earlier, she oversees every single thing that goes on stage at the Houston Symphony, but she focuses on the classical series. And then we have another gentleman named Roger Daly who does the education, and he handles everything that's for kids. And my job is to handle anything that is, it's not any educational things for little kids, but it's not classical either. So even if something is, somebody famous that's a classical artist like Yo-Yo Ma or Emmanuel Axe, that wouldn't really fall under my territory. What I handle is anything that I handle our entire Pops series, which is 9 concerts, and we have a principal Pops conductor named Michael Krajewski. And the Pop series is a mix of concerts that Mike will lead, such as based on particular themes, like you might do a program of all movie music or a program of all Broadway music, and we'll bring in some Broadway singers or things like that. And we also have particular names and famous people that come and perform with the orchestra on the Pop series. And that might be people like Bernadette Peters from the Broadway world, or Randy Newman from the movie world, or people like that. And the Pop series is focused a lot more on entertainment and sort of more of it's a more lighthearted series than classical. So the concerts are generally, you'll hear a series of 5-minute long pieces, and they might have a singer out front or a band out front or dancers or something besides for the orchestra alone. And we always try to make sure the orchestra is featured and is a prominent part of the concert, but that's not the only thing on stage for a Pop series. And then we also have a series called American Expressions, and that is features popular contemporary artists that are popular now. It's generally skewed toward a younger demographic than the Pops series is. Artists we've had on that series, for example, last year we had Elvis Costello and Garrison Keillor. Next year we have Jim Brickman and Randy Travis and some others. So that's another series that I handle. And then I also handle a lot of programming in the summertime, which is just kind of fun, lighthearted things that are appropriate for families, and that is just something fun and entertaining to go out and do in the summer. For example, last year we had the Lord of the Rings concert, and we had Bugs Bunny on Broadway. This year we're doing a concert about video games and another concert about baseball, and we have Wynonna Judd here tonight and that kind of thing. And then there's kind of just these random specials throughout the year that feature a particular artist, like we just had Kenny Rogers, or we might have Tony Bennett, or we also have Linda Ronstadt coming in October. So those are generally focused on the stars. So my job as the programmer is to choose the artists that we, in collaboration with, of course, all of my colleagues, is to choose the artists that appear on these series, and I book them, which means I deal with their agents to negotiate the deals and the financial terms under which they come to perform with us. And then I do the contracts, and once they're all booked and contracted, my job is to advance the concerts from an operations level. And that means kind of being the quarterback for advance planning for what's going to happen on stage. The marketing people handle selling the concert. Down in artistic operations, we handle planning the behind the scenes for the artist care and for the technical and getting everything lined up for the actual performance. I went to Fairfield University in Connecticut, and I did a double major of music and business. And for music specifically, I'm a classical musician, and I studied violin and both performance and theory and music history. And then on the business side, I studied marketing. So I think it was an enormous help for me to get my foot in the door for my first job and for my job here, to have both the artistic and the business elements of my education, because there's a lot of creative people out there, and there's a lot of people who know how to play an instrument and know about music theory and know about, you know, every new band that they read about in Rolling Stone magazine. And then there's a lot of great business people. But to get into arts administration or into the music business, companies and corporations look for people that have a knowledge of the product, which is music, and has a sensible business head as well. So I found that to be really beneficial for me, and if someone's looking to get into the music industry or to arts administration, I'd certainly recommend involving, you know, some element of both music and business into their education. After I graduated from college, I got a job at Sony Music at a record label, working as an assistant, and then sort of worked my way up there for a couple of years into a product manager role. And then I moved down to Texas and got a job at the Houston Symphony. So I think that I'm very fortunate to be in this position here in the Symphony, because it really allowed me to use my classical music education, because I have to deal with conductors, and yes, I'm booking popular artists, but we're also playing a lot of classical music, and I need to be able to speak the language. So that was great. Kind of for me, it kind of gives me the best of all worlds, that I'm using the classical side of my background, as well as when I worked at the label, I worked in the rock side of the business. So I'm sort of in touch with those artists. So that was my path. It was just sort of some good fortune of being in the right place at the right time. I think that programmers across the board probably face the same challenges, and I can't answer that firsthand because I haven't programmed for a company like Clear Channel or Pacer, you know, big for-profit presenters. I haven't done that, so I can't speak to what the challenges are in their jobs. But one of the things that comes to mind immediately is that as a nonprofit company, a nonprofit organization, we count on our income to come in advance. And as such, you'll see orchestras and operas and theaters and organizations like us, you'll see that we launch a series. And we launch the series in the at one particular time of year. It's annual. And part of launching that series is so that people will subscribe. And when somebody subscribes, that's dependable income that you know you have. We don't operate on a concert-to-concert basis. A for-profit company can do that, where they can book a show 2 months out and then book another one a week later. And it's a little bit more of a rotating cycle where people are buying their tickets throughout the entire year at for a major for-profit company, whereas here the people are buying the majority of their tickets at one time during the year. And the challenge that brings in when we're dealing with popular artists is that popular artists aren't always willing to set their schedule a year and a half out. So it can be kind of hard to pin down an artist for 2008 right now in the summer of 2006. We need to do that because we need to be able to have a series to launch, a subscription. But doesn't always make sense with contemporary artists, because they don't know if they're going to be out recording a record or if they're going to be on tour overseas or what they're going to be doing. So that's an immediate challenge that comes to mind. But in terms of booking artists, I mean, I think we kind of all have the same. I use the same agencies that that Clear Channel uses, so you're kind of dealing with a lot of the same people. It's just that we sort of have to build in a little bit more lead time than they do. But choosing the artists, a huge criteria for us is 95% of the concerts that we put on stage, we want the artist performing with the orchestra, and that means that they need to have orchestra music. So that limits your pool right away. You either need to choose an artist that already has existing orchestra charts, and they might have those from a record that they recorded with an orchestra in the studio. They might have those from someone else that commissioned them before. But choosing artists that already have charts in existence is the bulk of where our artists come from. Choosing an artist that doesn't have charts, it's certainly possible, and we've done it before, but it's a much bigger investment and a much bigger undertaking because we need to have the charts written, and that's a significant commitment of both our organization's finances and our time, and it's a much bigger process than just booking someone who comes with charts in hand. That's a major criteria for how we choose our artists. A lot of the major agencies have agents who are specifically dedicated to booking for orchestras, so they'll handle all of the artists that have charts. There's also agents who have just established their careers and just really grounded them booking to orchestras. So they're sort of in the know about who has charts and who doesn't have charts, and just kind of have to keep your ear to the ground. And if you hear about an artist, recording a new record of standards with orchestra, then I'd sort of make a mental note of it, and sometimes just giving their management a call and having a chat to see if they have charts and if they'd be interested in doing it. I think that my former point about stressing to an employer that you have both knowledge about music and knowledge about the business world is something that people want to hear, because no matter who you're working for, whether it be a nonprofit organization or a big record label or a manager or a big agency, they all need people who are sensible and who are practical in their business sense. So although our product is a lot more creative than if you're working for a toothpaste company, it's important. So I would say that my biggest piece of advice would be to educate yourself in business and in music, and make sure that any job you're looking for knows about that quality that you bring with you.